This video we're going to be talking about Code Vein, which is going to be releasing next month, and that's going to be amazing because there's just so much new stuff that's going to be added into the game. I personally loved the first Code Vein, even though that a lot of people didn't, and I think that this is improving quite a lot. Not only that, but since the rest of the Souls games out there are evolving, pretty much every single Souls-like is learning from the other Souls-likes. There's going to be a whole bunch of new mechanics that we're going to be discussing right in here that are going to be tied directly or indirectly to different Souls-likes out there that they have mastered some aspects of the games, but also introducing the new mechanics that give you a different identity to the one that you have out there for the rest of the games. So this video is mostly going to be out of mechanics, and all of this information comes from the video gameplay presentation from interviews that I have found out there, and all of the interviews, I'm going to have them linked in the video description in case you do want to give them a read, but I'm condensing all of that research and information in this video for you guys so that you don't really have to. First, I want to talk about this new health bar that we have in the game. You will notice that the health bar is divided in half. Like, there's a yellow health bar and then there's a blue health bar. Now, when you open the menu, you will see that it says HP, which I imagine it's hit points, and then to the right you have LP, which I imagine it's loot points. Remember that that is the character that divided her heart with you. So your health bar, it's now divided in between this character that's, narratively speaking, she acts like your bonfire maiden in Souls games, and she's also the one that is going to allow you to travel through time in this game to visit the different periods and where their story is going to be unfolding. But back in the gameplay mechanics that this entails, we still don't have a whole bunch of information, but you do see while you are playing on the gameplay presentation that the enemy first deals damage to these blue hit points or this LP, these loot points, and a shield appears immediately as you receive damage. So I'm guessing that this could also be some kind of stagger or poise mechanic, but I highly doubt that, because even though that the shield is appearing in here, you will see that there's many situations where the character is trying to cast or do an action and he is going to still be interrupted, so I highly doubt that this is going to be tied directly to poise. But I'm guessing that it has, since there's like two separate different stats, I imagine that outside of narrative things, it should have some kind of impact into the game. But we don't have that much information about this right now. I just wanted to point that out, that it is out here and that it is interesting. Now, one of the most interesting mechanic, it's going to be the auxiliary weapons, the jail weapons. There's going to be a whole bunch of different types of them. You will see that there's a bow in here. Now, you have your main weapon, and then these auxiliary weapons that, while you can use them, they shouldn't be your main means of playing. And ideally, what you want to do with these weapon types, you want to use them for the special critical hits whenever you have diminished or staggered an enemy. You're going to be able to use these weapons. They are directly tied to Ichor. Remember that while you produce bleeding or you drop blood from the enemies, you get Ichor points. This Ichor points is going to allow you to use these jail weapons. When you don't have enough Ichor points, you're not going to be able to use these jail weapons, and there's supposedly going to be a whole bunch of them, like the one that we have right in here, the bow. So the possibilities are just humongous, and they can get really creative with this. But also the special animations that you deal while critical hits are going to be dependent on the jail weapon that you have. I think that this is one of the mechanics that sets Code Vein directly being something different from the rest of the games out there, because while it is mentioned by the game's director in one of the interviews that while there is a parry mechanic in the game, this game is more about having a frenetic while still remaining on this Souls-like staple combat system formula, it focuses a little bit more on being aggressive and fighting and being on the face of the enemy. That has to do as well with the E-core points that you have right in here and the jail weapons and how much your build variety is going to be affecting in here. Remember that there's also the blood type that you're using, that it is going to give your stats either strength, dexterity, intelligence, fate, and what have you. Your weapons are going to scale out of this, but also your jail weapons have a scaling system that they scale out of the highest base stat. So it wouldn't really make sense if you have, like, let's say a strength archetype for your main character and then you're using a intelligence, let's say jail. That's not going to consecutively give you that much more damage. So the build variety and how much you're using your resources and how frenetic can you be during combat and how much damage can you be dishing out is going to be a consequence of all of these things synergizing together. It is also mentioned during this interview, and I do want to emphasize the parrying system. Let's compare this thing to, for example, games that we have out there like Lies of P, that heavily relies on you being able to parry, or the first Berserker Kazan, that heavily relies on either being able to parry or pulling off perfect dodges that allow you to retaliate and what have you. And the game director did say that it's mostly going to be based on this frenetic type of combat system, but also the build crafting aspect variety and the combination that you have in between all of these aspects. Going back into the blood archetype that you have for your main character, your weapons are also going to be scaling out of this resource. And if you combine all of this together alongside with the E-core and being able to use all of those skills at your advantage and being frenetic and being able to, while being that way frenetic, gathering E-core to be more aggressive, that's going to be the gist of everything. And what I love about that is that it's also going to be build dependent on how broken and how well are you synergizing everything to dish the most amount of damage, so you can exhaust the enemy's health bar before they do you. And that focuses, of course, on a more frenetic type of play style rather than turtling and trying to fish for those parries. But the parries are an option, of course. It's also interesting to see right in here, it is not mentioned as much in the interviews, and it is not mentioned as much by the people doing the gameplay presentation right in here. But you can see that the main weapon outside from your jail weapon and these weapons that are going to be using the E-core abilities, they have what we're going to call them for now weapon odds, or like you would know them in Elden Ring Ashes of War. This is a skill that the weapon has, and all of the weapons may or may not have their own skills, so that is interesting to see as well, because this is a mechanic that while it was not introduced in Elden Ring, many games are adding it a little bit more, like you can see in Lies of P, for example, where you can alter the weapon to change the actual skills, active skills that the weapons may or may not have. But this is something that it was present even from Dark Souls 1, where there were special weapons that would use their ability to use their special skills, and then it was a little bit more later refined on Dark Souls 3, where you could actually switch those skills and they would use a different resource rather than the weapons durability. It has evolved into, as you can see them in Elden Ring, you can see them in Lies of P, and you can see them right in here on Code Vein 2 as well. So combining this with the rest of the auxiliary weapons that we have already talked about, it's a huge roster of stuff that you can add into your build to be deadly. Alongside that, there's also the companion system. The game director in an interview mentions that they want for you to bond with the many characters that you have out there in the world. And much like in the first Code Vein, you can learn the stories, you're probably going to have side quests with them, and they want for you to bond with them. There's probably going to be a type of mechanic that, depending on how much time you spend with them, you're going to unlock either their quest or new stuff that they're going to give you. And I mention that because while they focus the overall everything into you being able to play with them and use them in combat, as you can see right in here, and that they all have their own different skill sets and their own different type of builds. Like some of them may be mages, some of them might be tanks and what have you, more type like assassin type characters. It is also mentioned that they did not neglect the fact that a lot of people want to play solo. I myself count myself into one of those people that I like to play by myself. I like to learn the masters by myself. I like to learn the patterns, and at least for my first playthrough, I like to play by myself. But they also mentioned that they also want for you to have an edge on this remark. So these characters, while you do not have actively out there with you, they are going to give you passive bonuses, passive buffs, provided that you have assimilated them with you, provided that you have equipped them and that they are quote-unquote accompanying you. They can be talking to you, so you can bond with them. They can be making their remarks and they can be making comments and giving you kind of like they're in the base and they're giving you instructions or talking about things that you're seeing and they can see through you, so you're still bonding with them. But I'm curious if at some point you're going to be able to, while doing this bonding, while having them equipped, like maybe I have one of them equipped and I'm not going to level up the other one, to what extent is this going to be true? But what it is true is that you can carry them into battle, you can bond with them, you can do their side quests, and if you do not want to have an active companion, you can just have their buff, and that buff is going to help you if you want to play solo. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about Code Vein 2. Are you excited about Code Vein 2 and the new mechanics that it is going to introduce? It's not long now, and I didn't really think that we were going to get a Code Vein 2 because I didn't really think that Code Vein 1 did that well. Anyways, I digress. If you like the content, you like it, it's super appreciated. Not so you that you're gorgeous and beautiful person, you're indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join the Discord, have a beautiful day, and goodbye.